I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Wood. So a look at some of the cameras that we've been tracking here, again, with multiple fires breaking out. This is near Banner Mountain. You can see just a small smoke plume there. Also Bar Ranch, smoke plume developing just about a half hour ago or so. We've got a Serendipity fire burning near Nevada City, as well as down by Don Pedro Reservoir in Tuolumne County. We've got this camera view right here. It does look like some pretty good movement progress has been made on getting that fire down. And then in Gardnerville, Nevada, you can see it's a pretty explosive firefight there. That is an area that is actually under that red flag warning right now. And we're going to take a look at some of those wind conditions, but we've got two different red flag warnings in effect, one of which already in effect. That's going to be for the eastern slope of the Sierra, including parts of Alpine and Mono County, mainly running right around 395, and then again east of the crest, where we actually have near Gardnerville that fire burning right now. Started off very small this morning, but it is wind driven, and so now it's up to 2,000 acres. It's burning in some pretty remote terrain, so it's not necessarily threatening a lot of structures, but something to be following because that could quickly get out of hand as those winds continue to develop. Now, the lower elevations not under that red flag warning in the Sacramento and northern San Joaquin Valley, as well as elevations below 1,000 feet and the Delta until tomorrow, but that will last through Sunday. So we've got kind of a 48-hour period here where we're going to be tracking some higher fire danger. Our wind advisory for the higher elevations already in effect. That will continue through tonight. That does include the Tahoe Basin, where we are seeing wind gusts right now upwards of 40+ miles per hour. Some isolated areas even higher than that could reach over 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts for today. We're starting to see the wind gusts periodically throughout the valley, but it's because of the direction coming in from the southwest. They aren't very dry, so we still have humidity that doesn't quite meet the threshold for our red flag warning. Compare that to the higher elevations where we really just don't see that humidity coming up, and so humidity is very low. It meets the threshold to get to that red flag warning criteria. We've got the gusty winds as well as low humidity. That all comes into play for the valley by tomorrow as our winds start to shift. Here's a look at that humidity, and this is what I'm talking about. Very different in the Sierra than what we're seeing in the valley. When you combine the low humidity, the gusty winds, it's a recipe for that critical fire weather, and that's what we're seeing for the higher elevations right now, with only about 10 to 20% humidity. Compare that to the valley, still pulling in some of that Pacific air, and we're keeping that humidity above the threshold of a red flag warning. That is not the case for tomorrow, with forecast models showing a lot of decreased humidity and increasing winds. Now, this is all being driven by this low to the north of us here, with dangerous fire weather conditions developing. Ironically enough, we have the cooler air moving in and some precipitation throughout the Pacific Northwest. But again, we are not tapping into any of that moisture come tomorrow afternoon. Our headlines include that weather impact alert when Saturday through Sunday morning for the valley. We've got fire danger, dry, gusty winds. Be alert to warnings. Have your go bag ready in case of a fire developing and emergency personnel saying you need to evacuate immediately. We'll go over some of the items to have prepared in the next 24 hours as these breezy conditions develop, and that will bring with it the fire danger. It will subside somewhat on Sunday, but again, next 24 hours to 48 hours in that critical category here. We've seen temperatures drop. So many times we hear that people will associate fire danger with heat. That is not necessarily the case. In fact, some of our biggest fires developed later in the year. Slightly cooler temperatures, but all wind driven, because it is just so hard to get the upper hand and get control of those flames once they start, especially when it is a wind driven fire. So temperatures right now are actually much cooler than where we were yesterday at this point. That does not mean put your guard down. It's been 20 days since we've seen temperatures at or above 100 degrees. But more notable is how many days it's been since we've seen wetting rain. That's been 80+ days. We have to go all the way back to March 30th when we had over 1/10 of an inch of rain through much of the valley. So it's a very, very dry right now. Fuel dryness. Now, this is our energy release component. What is the likelihood if a fire were to start? We would have the fuels available for a pretty explosive fire. We're not quite in the extreme burning potential. That happens later on in the season, but we're starting to edge towards that. Large fires likely for the Sacramento Valley and surrounding hills. That's why when these weather conditions develop around some of the wind and the low humidity, we have that red flag warning being issued mainly for the lower elevations. But as you saw just a moment ago, we also have that for the higher elevations now. This is what it looked like a month ago. This is what it looks like right now for soil moisture. Things are drying out rapidly. Again, we're going 80+ days without a big rain event coming through Northern California and Central California. A drought monitor doesn't always tell the whole picture. You got to dig a little bit deeper. So when you see the drought monitor and say, oh, it's okay here through the valley, not necessarily the whole picture because of that fuel dryness and soil moisture that's starting to dry out. We have the potential for a lot of fuel to burn pretty quickly here. Here's a breakdown of those fire weather alerts. Again, we're tracking multiple fires throughout Northern California and parts of Nevada. Nevada right now in the critical category. Our red flag warning is in effect for the eastern slope and Nevada through 11 o'clock tonight. We've got wind gusts 40 to 60+ miles per hour potentially through this afternoon and into the evening with low humidity, only about 5 to 15%. When we come down into the valley as well as the hills below 1,000 feet, that will kick in at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning and continue through our Sunday morning with gusts at about 30 to 40 miles per hour. So again, if a flame were to spark a fire, it would be a difficult firefight for emergency personnel. Low humidity as well contributing to some of the low fuel moisture and the available potential to get those fires going right now throughout Northern and Central California. As far as the winds, currently they're very gusty in the Sierra, upwards of about 50 to almost 60 miles per hour, and those will continue through at least tonight. Here's what I want to point out, though. You can see how the wind shift is starting to happen throughout parts of the valley. We're pulling in those southwest winds currently. Those shift to the northwest at about 20 to 25 miles per hour, even in some cases 30 to 40 miles per hour as we head through the afternoon on Saturday. That's when it becomes particularly dangerous. The biggest risk areas are going to be along I-5 and just west of I-5 through parts of the foothills as well as in the northern and central part of the Sacramento Valley. That being said, we're all under that red flag warning from roughly about Modesto all the way northward up towards Redding, and then for the foothills and the mother lode below 1,000 feet. That does include parts of the coastal range, parts of Lake County, Colusa as well. Just be aware the potential exists for those fast-moving fires. Our future humidity kind of in line with those northwest winds. You're going to see how quickly the humidity starts to drop as well, down to about 10 to 20% or so during the day on Saturday. So very, very dry air throughout the valley. Very little overnight recovery as well. So even into our Sunday morning, when we typically see humidity come up, we just don't see that. What happens overnight is cold air can't hold as much moisture. So we see that humidity come up during the day. The air gets a little drier, the heat able to absorb a little bit more moisture. But unfortunately, we just don't see that happening overnight Saturday into Sunday. And that's why we'll have that red flag warning continuing at least until the middle part of the morning. Our significant fire potential. Now, this is from the agencies that cover all things fire. We're talking fuel moisture as well as atmospheric conditions. And what we're seeing is a moderate to dry development throughout much of the valley. And then, of course, we've got the high development potential for the higher elevations due to wind and the low humidity. That being true for parts of, again, Alpine, Mono County, so around Mammoth and Bishops, as well as along 395. As we head into tomorrow, that will start to subside a little bit, but we're going to stick with that moderate dry conditions throughout the Central Valley and then over towards the coast, some of which will be under that red flag warning because of the wind conditions and the low humidity. Looking at our elevated fire weather today, it's on the more minor side for the northern and central part of the Sacramento Valley, where we have that red flag warning again east of the crest, where we're tracking one of those explosive fires in Gardnerville. I'll look at those cameras again in just a moment. Wind gusts at 35 miles per hour, humidity 10 to 25%. Now tomorrow is when we go into that weather impact alert. That'll take us through Sunday morning in the moderate range. We've got the valley and hills as well as the delta. Foothills being below 1,000 feet. Above that, we're going to be more in the minor range just because humidity will be a bit higher and those wind gusts a little bit lower. But for the areas that are going to be under the red flag warning, we've got our wind gusts 30 to 40 miles per hour, humidity 10 to 25%, and that meets that threshold of our red flag warning criteria. We were just under that fire weather watch yesterday. That is issued several days before fire weather develops, gusty winds and low humidity. But now that confidence has grown, we are under the red flag warning, meaning that we've got fire weather conditions imminent or occurring. Occurring will be tomorrow, and imminent is why it's issued today for tomorrow. Haven't seen the particularly dangerous situation red flag warning yet this season, and typically we don't see that until we really see a lot more fuel start to develop. I will say this though, we had that earlier this year in Southern California when we had that explosive fire growth in January. There's several months without wetting rain, and then the weather conditions developed, and that unfortunately made for catastrophic firefighting conditions. That bumped up our acreage so far this year for our fire season to roughly about 90,000 acres burned, well ahead of where we were last year at this time, well ahead of our 5-year average. But again, that's largely because of what happened in January. Our peak fire season is all year long. It's really dependent on when we get the wetting rains. If we don't see the onset of that come in October and November, then we just prolong that fire season until we see some pause in all of that. This year, it was very late for Southern California. Northern California, we got it a little bit earlier, but that could mean for more fuel that will dry out. That could give us the potential for a pretty dangerous fire season moving forward. So we've had about 2,600 acres or 2,600 fires, and again, almost 90,000 acres burned so far this year. Fire defense is going to be critical here moving into the season. I wouldn't do this right now. I wouldn't get your lawnmower out and try to be clearing that defensible space if you've got dry grass right now. We've seen too many times when people are doing that, trying to be proactive, but it's in an environment that is not conducive to that type of activity. So you want to just scale back, do the best you can. If you need to, maybe just don't use any equipment. You just use a shovel or what have you just to get that clearance on your property. Fire defense can also mean clearing some of the brush to the canopy of the trees. That's a proper vertical clearance to slow fire spread. This is going to take a little more action. So again, right now is not necessarily the best time to do this, but when we have a window of opportunity, definitely want to make sure that the tops of your lowest brush is about 3 times the base of your tree canopy, and that will prevent what's called laddering. You don't want the lower brush to catch fire and then catch onto a canopy of trees, and then it just spreads throughout the forest. So preventing a spark, I mean, folks, this is really the best way to prevent what's going on right now from happening at all. Keep vehicles off of dry grass. Watch for those dragging vehicle parts. Mow lawns, not grass or weeds. This is what I was talking about with some of that defensible space. Now is not the window of opportunity to really get that done with a lawnmower or any type of equipment. You can do it with a shovel, or if you have a rake, you just want to make sure all the needles, the pine needles, are away from your property, and properly dispose of cigarettes and matches. So look at those wildfire emergency items. Are you ready to go? Do you have your survival needs? Is your car charged or filled up with gas? Is your phone charged? Do you have enough food and water for 3 days? Get those important documents ready. Proof of ownership. You want to make sure you can get into your property if you're asked to evacuate for an extended period of time. Have that go bag with an emergency preparedness kit in your car, and remember your pets. So many times these evacuation shelters will require you to have a carrier and identification for your pet, as well as medication, and bring those toys or anything that you need to keep them comfortable as well. Those are just things you can do beforehand. You don't want to have to do that as you're being asked to evacuate. Have your resources ready as well. Sign up for those wireless emergency alerts from your county, as well as have immediate internet access available with social media and websites. Also, if you have a NOAA weather radio, that's a really good resource if your power goes out. Usually those have a battery backup in it, and make sure your family and friends know where you're going to go, or you have that contact list and you contact one person and then it's just that phone chain. Hey, here's where so-and-so is. This is the evacuation center they're going out to. Make sure that's done before the weather hazard. I'm going to step off for a moment. Again, ABC 10 Plus is where we've got all this information. I just want to go back to these cameras just to get another look at where we are currently with our fires. And I'm just going to get a real quick update as well in terms of the acreage. The one that's been concerning me the most is going to be the one at Gardnerville, because that is the largest one. Okay, folks, we've got two fires now. We've got the Serendipity fire, which is burning near Nevada City. The Springs fire is burning near Penn Valley. That's going to be just up the hill from where we'll have the red flag warning, not currently under the red flag warning. The one that you see there on the bottom right hand of your screen, that is in Gardnerville. It looks like Connor Fire. It's Douglas County, Nevada. Quite an explosive fire growth going on right now. Again, fairly remote area. And then the one that you see more so towards the lower left is going to be the Camino Fire. That's going to be mapped at about 200 acres. They are attacking that pretty well right now. Not a whole lot of smoke coming out of that one. Let me see if I can just expand this view for you here on this Gardnerville one. Looks like they've got another view, so that'll be good. I'm going to bring that back up. There we go. So they've kind of pulled out on that particular fire right now, and I just want to make sure that we've got the right one here. And yes, okay. So that's the one that we're looking at there. That's going to be in Nevada. That is called the Connor Fire. It started very early this morning. There's evacuations going on right now for that particular fire. They've got that in Douglas County, Nevada, where we have a red flag warning in effect right now. Just wanted to make sure that I got all the recent information. So again, we're looking at Nevada right now, and you can see how big that smoke plume is. I would anticipate that this is going to be an extensive firefight going on for much of tonight into early tomorrow morning, given that we're under a red flag warning in that area right now, burning through a lot of fuel. Just up here on the upper right-hand screen, as well as on the left, we're looking at two different fires that are up just north of Highway 50, and then the one closer to Don Pedro Reservoir. That does look like that is getting a bit more under control. 200 acres for that Camino fire, but we've got two that have started off fairly recently. So again, here's a look at the red flag warning. As you can see, there's two different regions here. The one that extends along 395 and east of the crest, that's in effect until tonight. It's in effect right now through tonight. Lower elevations, that starts up tomorrow through Sunday morning. We do have that wind advisory in effect. Keep in mind, these wind gusts are over 50 miles per hour in some areas. Just think about that firefight in Nevada. Here's a look at those wind gusts, over 45 miles per hour, straight up and down, right through Douglas County, where that firefight is happening right now with the Connor Fire. Over 2,000 acres, started earlier today. It's continuing to burn at a rapid rate of speed. So this is going to be a tough one for folks that are trying to fight that fire there. As far as our current winds locally through the valley, haven't quite picked up yet. Expect that to be the case for tomorrow. We'll see the increase in northwest winds, decrease in humidity, It is going to be cooler, but that's not the reason why we have the red flag warning. The reason is because of our wind gusts that will be picking up, as well as very low humidity. So the wind advisory in effect for the higher elevations right now. Here's the area we'll be focused on for tomorrow. But again, we'll take a look at some of the camera views that we've been tracking. A couple of fires up through Northern California, more so towards Nevada County, parts of Yuba County we've been tracking as well. Tuolumne County, it looks like this one over towards Don Pedro Reservoir, still a little bit smoky there, but the big one is going to be in Nevada, Douglas County. That one about 2,000 acres. We're going to continue to track that through this afternoon, of course, on ABC 10 Plus, but also on our broadcast network, ABC 10. We've got live newscasts at 5, 6, and 6:30, as well as 11 o'clock for tonight. This is a story we'll be tracking not only for today, but through tomorrow as well. With our red flag warnings in effect, we've got a weather impact alert as well, all the way into Sunday morning. This is the start of what will be a very long fire season for us, as a lot of fuel has yet to burn and weather conditions lining up for this weekend, at least to start, for the critical fire weather and potential explosive growth as well.